We interrupt this program to bring you a special bulletin from A Rood Awakening International. Here's Michael Rood.
A couple days ago, I met you in my office because I felt that I had an urgent message to get to you to tell everyone to tune into what we're doing on Shabbat Night Live. Here we are, we're going on Shabbat Night Live tonight, but this is the time of the new moon in Israel, and I have had several comments. Now that Nehemia Gordon, since this last fall, as of the sighting of the new moon of the month of Tishri, the 7th month, he announced that after 20 years that he is going to step away from his project, which has been the announcing of the new moon to the entire world for this duration of time, because he was taking so much time away from the ministry that he felt that the Almighty had put him on. And with the way things are going on in Israel and around the world, I understood that immediately. People were asking me, well, will there be a new moon if Nehemia Gordon is not declaring it? Well, the new moon, of course, is going to continue to be sighted, and the sun will continue to rise, even though Nehemia is not in Israel at this time to do it. But as he said, he has much more important things to do, and live with me right now, we have Nehemia Gordon from Texas. Nehemia, welcome. It's good to see you.
Howdy, Michael. It's great to be here.
Hey, Nehemia, things are really happening on a not only on an Israel front, but on a worldwide scale right now that takes us right back to Israel's past. Tell us, what is going on?
Well, just recently we had a speech from Secretary of State John Kerry, and this was following a decision at the United Nations to condemn 500,000 Israelis as war criminals. And what they did is, in 1967, Israel liberated what the world calls the West Bank and Gaza, and there are 500,000 Jews living in what the world calls the West Bank. We actually don't recognize it as the West Bank. We call it Judea, Samaria, and Jerusalem. I mean, we're talking about the old city of Jerusalem, the Jewish quarter. They're calling occupied territory. The Western Wall, the world is telling us that me going to pray at the Western Wall is a war crime. And this is something that the world's been trying to condemn Israel with for decades. And the United States has always, as part of the alliance that the U.S. and Israel have, has always vetoed it. Well, Obama decided that he was not going to veto it. And there's some talk that he was actually behind the scenes engineering this. But in any event, it's unprecedented in the modern era. Although if we go back in history, this has happened time and again. It's unbelievable that we're actually having these conversations today in 2016. And these are the conversations that were going on in ancient times. We're just coming to the end of Hanukkah, and this actually happened in the historic Hanukkah. I mean, almost word for word what's going on today. It's unbelievable, Michael.
Now, I want to step back. I want you to take us back in history on this, but I'm going to tell you a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, what you're going to hear tonight, because I make this statement. I said, if you think that a Muslim is going to leave office quietly, you have got another thought coming. We are going to watch what Obama and what the Pope do during Hanukkah and Purim this year. Now we're seeing exactly what Obama has done during Hanukkah. This is an absolute, we are going to see prophecy repeat itself. Nehemia, tell us what happened over 2,000 years ago.
Well, so Michael, in the original Hanukkah, the story that I grew up with, what I was told, is that in 168, Antiochus IV tried to stamp out Judaism, and then 3 years of bitter fighting, and the Jews defeat the Greeks, and everybody lives happily ever after the liberation of the temple in 165 BC with the first Hanukkah. That's not what happened, Michael. If you read in 1 and 2 Maccabees, the war continued for decades. And in fact, it wasn't until 141 BC, under the brother of Judah the Maccabee, whose name was Simon, that they finally drove the Greeks out of the garrison. There was a Greek garrison in the heart of Jerusalem, in the spot that in ancient times, even earlier, there was the fortification of David, what's called the City of David. Mm-hmm. And it's incredible because last year, the archaeologists finally published what they've been uncovering for the last nearly 15 years, which was this, what's known in history as the Acra, or the Acropolis of the Greeks. That was the Greek garrison in the heart of Jerusalem. We're told in Jewish sources that Jews couldn't go to the temple during the day because the Greeks would fire arrows at them or throw feces at them. They had to go at night, so the Greeks couldn't see them. So imagine this, in the heart of Jerusalem, there is this foreign entity, this acropolis, this foreign fortification, and it takes them 35 years from 34 years from 165 to 141. They've liberated the temple, but they can't go to the temple during the day because they'll get shot at. And it isn't until 141 that Simon finally drives the Acra out. Well, then 7 years later, he gets a letter from Antiochus VII, who is one of the heirs of Antiochus IV. And Antiochus VII writes as follows. He says, "You hold control of Jaffa and Gezer and the citadel of Jerusalem." Citadel of Jerusalem, read that as East Jerusalem, because that's literally what he's talking about. He's talking about the city of David in East Jerusalem. So you hold control of Jaffa, Gezer, and East Jerusalem. They are cities of my kingdom. And then he says, "Hand over the cities that you have seized, that you have conquered outside the borders of Judea." Wait, East Jerusalem is outside the borders of Judea? "Or else pay me 500 talents of silver for the destruction that you've caused, and 500 talents more for the tribute of the cities. Otherwise, we will come and make war on you." So he's saying in no uncertain terms, this is Antiochus VII, the Greek heir of Antiochus IV, who's saying, "Give me land or there will be war." You know, when we hear this term, I've been hearing this term since I was a little kid, land for peace. If we just gave them another piece of land, there'd be peace.
Right.
Just one more piece of land. Well, in 2005, Israel pulled out the last Jew from Gaza, and all we've had since then is war. I actually just did a podcast episode on my Hebrew Voices series called City of Rockets, in which I documented. I went to people who don't speak a word of English, and I said, "What's been going on here for the last 10 plus years?" And it was heartrending to hear some of the stories of how the Jews of Sderot, which is a city on the border of Gaza, have been living. And what we got instead of land for peace is we got land, and in exchange we got war. And now the world is demanding, you've got to give back this land that you seized. And
it's literally land or war is what they're saying now.
Absolutely. It's the same words. It's unbelievable. It's literally the same words that were spoken in 134 BC that are going on today in 2016. And then Simon's reply could be a letter that Netanyahu sent today to John Kerry. It says, this is in 1 Maccabees 15:33. This is in a study I have online. It's called War Without End. And it's quoted from 1 Maccabees 15. "Simon said to him in reply," this is to Antiochus VII, "we have neither taken foreign land nor seized foreign property, but only the inheritance of our ancestors, which at one time had been unjustly taken by our enemies." That's unbelievable. Simon says this in 134 BC to Antiochus VII. It could be Netanyahu writing a letter to John Kerry and saying, "You're calling us war criminals for going and praying at the Western Wall in a sovereign Jewish state? This is the land of our ancestors, which was unjustly taken by our enemies. You want us to give it over to our enemies now? That makes no sense to anybody in the world. This is really unprecedented in the modern era, but if you go back to ancient times, Michael, this is the par for the course, where the nations of the world say, you Jews can't live in that area because you're Jews. Yeah. My ancestors, Michael, 150 years ago lived in a place in Eastern Europe, in what was the Russian Empire, and they established something called the Pale of Settlement. And the idea of the Pale of Settlement is Jews can only live in certain areas that we designate. They're trying to establish a Pale of Settlement today in our homeland. We're Jews. Jews come from Judea. It's unbelievable. It's shocking. It really is disappointing.
Well, I'm thankful that you really have taken a step away from that which has been going on well over 20 years now, which the Orthodox have been doing it. They have been documenting the sighting of the new moon every single month, and they have been going to you. These scholars, the rabbinic scholars, the Israeli New Moon Society, go to you and to your team and to the people who for more than 20 years have been analyzing scientifically the barley in the land of Israel. You reestablish that understanding to the effect that even the Israeli New Moon Society say, this is the man, he is the one that knows what he's talking about. Disregard everyone else, listen to this person, because the people that only speak Hebrew and only study the scriptures and discuss discuss them in Hebrew, know that Nehemia Gordon and the team of Karaites, they are the go-to people as far as that is concerned. And so many discoveries. And as far as the chronological Gospels, it couldn't have been done without Nehemia Gordon's work in establishing and documenting yearly when the barley is Aviv, when it's not Aviv, which contradicts sometimes when we would expect it to be. It's reality that he would report. I say that Nehemia is the most honest scholar, biblical scholar I have ever met in my life, and it's been a privilege to know him. And now I believe that it's time for him to step away, because what's happening and going down in Israel today is going to need his full attention, because he is a mouthpiece to the world. He has an authenticated mouth to the world. It's not blowing smoke. It's not jumping on the newest blood moon or Shemitah. It is telling us what's going on. Nehemia, I hope that you will be back with us and keep us updated as we see things go down, because this is not going to be a pretty picture. But the Almighty promises that the moon there's always going to be the renewing of the moon. As long as the sun is in the sky, then his promises to Israel stand. Is that not so?
Absolutely. And there's a prophecy in the Tanakh in the Old Testament, Michael, where God says, just as you see the moon and the sun in the sky, so too will my covenant be with Israel. As long as you look up and you see the moon in the sky, that covenant will continue. And there's a great account from during the Roman occupation of Israel, where the rabbis were not able to actually announce the new moon sighting, and they send this code word. And the code word that they send throughout the cities of Judea is, King David is alive and standing. And what that meant is, we've sighted the moon. We've sighted the new moon, and the code was very clear to anybody who heard this. Said the moon in the heaven is the sign of the covenant between the God of Israel and the people of Israel, that the covenant still stands. And when they say David is alive, that means we've sighted the moon. It's a picture of the Messiah, that just as we see the moon every month and we can see the sun in the sky every day, therefore, so too the covenant with the creator of the universe stands, and his promise of bringing the Messiah, and I understand, Michael, you say bringing the Messiah back, still stands and is true.
Amen. Well, as I said years ago, and as we close this broadcast right here, it was on our programs, and this was literally a dream. I woke up in the middle of the night and I wrote this down. 4,000 years ago, the creator of the heavens and the earth made an everlasting covenant with Abraham. All of the land from the Euphrates to the Nile belongs to the sons of Israel. Shockwaves will shake the earth as heaven reaches down to fulfill that covenant, and whatever nation stands against that promise will find themselves on the battlefield against the Almighty. This is coming down, ladies and gentlemen. You are going to watch it. You are going to see the whole Almighty, his hand revealed, and he will fight for his people. The revealing of his power in this day and time. We are live to see it. Nehemia Gordon on the first day of Tishri, on the real Rosh Hashanah, the real head of the year, that signing of the new moon, he resigned so that he could do his job that he was assigned to do. And thank you for being with us, Nehemia. I hope you'll come back and keep us posted on what's going on.
That'd be great, Michael. Shalom.
Okay, shalom.
Thank you for supporting Nehemia's McCore Hebrew Foundation. Learn more at nehemiaswall.com.